Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. My respected brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to another edition of Wednesday Q&A. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email at mufti@islamstl.org, and inshallah we will try to answer as many questions as we can on Wednesdays. So today, of course, we are getting towards the end of Dhul Qa'dah, and of course the blessed month of Dhul Hijjah is going to be beginning soon, insha'Allah ta'ala. And of course, with the month of Dhul Hijjah comes Eid al-Adha and also the rulings of Qurbani. So we have a few questions that are related to these particular things, and I'm sure next week, inshallah, we'll also go over some other questions that are related to that. So if you have any questions particularly about Dhul Hijjah or about Qurbani or Udhiyah or anything like that, please inshallah send a message and we will try to answer those questions. First question that we have today. So this year there is a chance that Eid al-Adha may be on a Friday. So the question always comes up that if Eid falls on a Friday, then would the Eid Salah and the khutbah suffice for the Jumu'ah Salah and the khutbah, right? So there are some who come for the Eid Salah and for the khutbah, and then, they mention an opinion that this suffices for the Jumu'ah, and then they don't pray the Jumu'ah Salah. They pray Dhuhr Salah in place of the Jumu'ah Salah. So what is the ruling with regards to that? Now, there is ikhtilaf and there is difference of opinion in this particular matter. We start with the ruling according to the Hanafi and the Maliki madhabs. They mention that if Eid does end up falling on the day of Jum'ah or on a Friday, then the Eid Salah and the khutbah, it will not suffice for the farad obligation of Salatul Jum'ah. And the jurists have ruled that these are two different commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and cannot be combined under any circumstance. That's according to their opinion and according to the majority opinion as well. And of course, the dalil and the proof of this comes from the Quran itself. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. In Surah Jumu'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the command to the believers that when the call to prayer comes, referring to Salatul Jumu'ah, then rush, فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله, rush towards the remembrance of Allah, meaning rush towards the masjid for the prayer of Jumu'ah. وَذْرُوا الْبَيْعَ, and seize your bay', seize your buyur, seize your transactions, seize your businesses, at that particular time, and rush, get ready, prepare yourselves for Jumu'ah, and rush towards the masjid for Jumu'ah. So we know when it comes to the rulings of the of Sharia, the number one source of ruling is the Quran itself, the Quran al-Kareem. This is the number one source. The second is, of course, the Hadith. And when it comes to the Eid Salah, the Eid Salah is, of course, itself, it's a wajib according to the Ahnaf. It's a very strong ruling on its own. However, the dalil that's for the Eid Salah is from the Hadith, which is the second degree of the second level of dalil when it comes to deriving rulings in Sharia. The Quran comes first and the Hadith comes second in that regard. So therefore, the ruling or the obligation of Jum'ah is higher and stronger than the wajib of the Eid Salah. And this is what the Ahnaf mentioned in that particular regard. So that's the first ruling, that it is necessary upon those. Yani those who are, of course, the muqim and the residents who normally have to pray Jumu'ah Salah on a Friday, it is necessary for them to pray Jumu'ah Salah even if Eid falls on that particular day. Second opinion, the Shafi madhab, they mention that Jumu'ah is still obligatory upon the residents of the towns and the cities and those who live near a reasonable distance. And nowadays, for a reasonable distance, for us, many people in the area in the city, they're in a pretty reasonable distance when it comes to a masjid in this whole St. Louis area, I guess you can say. So those who have the Jumu'ah Salah established in there, then in that case, those who live within a reasonable distance, and they. But those who live in towns that are in the outskirts, that are further away, like we say even now, even for the Ahnaf, if you're considered a traveler, and according to the ijtihad, they mention about 48 miles or so. So for the area anyway of Safar, For them, Jumu'ah is not obligatory anyway. Even for those who live in small towns and small villages that do not have a masjid in close vicinity, for them also Jumu'ah Salah is not wajib and it's not necessary. So these are the people who, when they come and pray Eid Salah, then for them the Jumu'ah Salah is not mandatory. So that's something. But according to the Shafi madhab as well, the Imam is still obliged to perform the Jumu'ah Salah as well for those who are able to do so. So the evidence that they mention is a hadith, a narration of Abi Ubaid, as reported in Muwatta Imam Malik. And this is, the Ahnaf also mentioned this one. This is when he prayed Eid Salah with Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu ta'ala an, when he was a Khalifa. And he started with the Salah and he delivered the khutbah. And in the khutbah, Uthman ibn Affan, he said that this day you have two Eids coming in one day, referring to, of course, Jum'ah as one Eid, which is our weekly Eid, and then the Eid itself. So he says, for the people who came from Al-Awali, which are the suburbs of the outskirts of Medina, where the Bedouins come from, he says, whoever wishes to remain and stay for Jum'ah, then let them stay. And whoever wishes to return back to their homes, then let them leave. They have my permission. So remember, they used to pray Salatul Eid at a very early time in the morning, right after the time of Ishraq. And they used to come from those far outskirts and come. Now, for them to remain in Medina all the way for the whole day and wait until Jumu'ah, it would be very inconvenient and very difficult for them. So thus, they had the permission to leave anyway. Thus, you can see Uthman ibn Affan, he particularly mentioned those who came from these areas. You may stay if you want to, but if you want to leave, you may leave as well. He did not say this for those who are the city residents, who are the residents of Medina already. So that's pretty clear on its own. The third opinion that's mentioned is the opinion of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullahi alayh. And this is the stronger opinion in his mazhab. He says that whoever attends the Eid Salah is pardoned from attending Jum'ah regardless of his place of residence. So even if one is normally obliged to pray Jum'ah as a muqim and as a resident, even for them, Jum'ah Salah is not necessary if Jum'ah falls on the day of Eid, and if they pray their Eid Salah with the congregation. And this is for both the Imam as well as the congregation. That's Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal's opinion with regards to that. But he says that the Imam, however, should still offer Jum'ah for those who wish to attend it, and for those who wish to for those who wish to attend it, number one, and number two, for those who miss their Eid Salah, for them Jum'ah would still be necessary. So the Imam should still offer the Salah. So, and for those who did pray the Eid Salah according to his madhab, he says the Dhuhr Salah, according to his stronger opinion, the Dhuhr Salah would still be necessary for them to pray. And he gives an evidence of a hadith of Zayd ibn Arqam radiallahu ta'ala, who said that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he prayed Eid Salah on a Friday and he granted permission regarding the praying of Jum'ah Salah. And he said that if anyone wants to pray, he may pray. So this was the general opinion that's mentioned over here. This is reported by Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and it's also in some other books of hadith as well. So that's another opinion that's out there. You can see the majority say otherwise, that Jumu'ah Salah is still necessary, especially for those who are the residents and who are the muqim. Of course, for those who are a traveler anyway, it's not mandatory upon them. So this is how they got these particular narrations that are mentioned. So at the end of the day, we see there is valid difference of opinion. So whoever follows their view, whichever view it may be, or they follow their madhab, another a person who follows a different view, they should not criticize them. This is the beauty of Deen and the beauty of Islam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it such for us that there are different rulings and they are valid for us to follow. These great scholars really did their ijtihad, and they were very knowledgeable in terms of how to derive these rulings when it came to these particular aspects. So we should never criticize the other when it comes to the ruling with regards to that. So this is something to remember when it comes to Eid Salah, or Eid, the day of Eid falling on the day of Jumu'ah. Second question. So we know that, of course, Udhiyah, the slaughtering of the animal, that's also one of the great acts of the day of Eid al-Adha. So who is Udhiyah or Qurbani, who is it wajib upon? Who is an obligation upon? So according to the fuqaha, they mention that it is an obligation upon the person who is, of course, a free person. That's, of course, everyone nowadays. Number two, the person who is a Muslim, they are a believer. Number three, they are mature, they are baligh. Right, so even if a child is rich and wealthy and has a lot of wealth in their possession, it is still not mandatory upon the child to perform a qurbani on with their wealth or for them. Fourthly, that they are sane, right? So they have aql, and they are sane. They're not, they don't have any type of instability or any type of handicap or illness or anything like that, which gives them the ability to not reason or think for themselves. So they're sane. And also that they are a resident. So if you are a traveler somewhere, if you are in safar, and if you are still rich or wealthy and you are in another place, in a place of travel, Qurbani is still not mandatory upon you. Yes, you can of course do it to get more reward, but it's not mandatory upon such a person. And then finally, the one who owns the wealth that is equivalent to the zakat nisab on that day. Now, the difference of the ruling here is that, of course, when it comes to zakat obligation, the person must have that amount in possession for the amount of a lunar year. But when it comes to the aspect of Qurbani, as long as they have that on the day of or within the 3 days of Qurbani, which is the 10th, 11th, or 12th of Dhul Hijjah, for that person, it is necessary upon them. So these are the groups for who it is necessary upon. Another question that comes up is that, is doing one Qurbani for one entire household. So, for example, if you slaughter one goat for one household, is that sufficient for the household? There's again ikhtilaf in this regard. The Ahnaf mentioned that for those who fall into the categories that I just mentioned, for each of them, as long as they're in that category, for each of them, the Qurban is obligatory upon them. The Udhiyah is obligatory upon each of them. While in the Shafi madhab, it's mentioned that even if you do one for the household, it is sufficient and it is enough for that. Now, of course, even in the Shafi madhab, if you do multiple, if you do one for each person, of course, you get more reward for that. But in terms of the obligation is concerned, even if you do one for the household, it is sufficient according to the Shafi madhab. Next question that comes up is, can I make one extra Qurbani, like a nafil Qurbani, you can say, with intentions on behalf of multiple people? So the answer to this is that, of course, when it comes to giving thawab for others, number one, it's necessary for one to do their own wajib Qurbani first and foremost. And then if you do a second one, then in that case, it is permissible and it is allowed to do one extra Qurbani, and you can make as much intention for as many people. You can even make it for the whole ummah, for all the Muslims of the ummah, for all the believers of the ummah. For those who have been deceased and passed away, you can make it for the intention for all of them, according to many of the scholars when it comes to that regard. So you can make an extra one on behalf of all of these people as well. Okay, can we distribute the meat of Qurbani to non-Muslims, right? So that's a good question as well. Now, normally what they say with the Qurbani meat is that you should, you can keeping 1/3 for yourself and 1/3 for your family, and 1/3, family and friends, and then 1/3 for the needy and 1/3 for the poor. Obviously you can give more to the poor, whatever it may be. But giving it to non-Muslims as well, according to the scholars, they say yes, you are permitted to give it to non-Muslims as well. However, it cannot be given as compensation for a service that was provided to you. So if a non-Muslim person came and maybe fixed something in your house, and now you're saying, here, you thanks for fixing this in my house. Here, take some of this Qurbani meat that I have done. You cannot give it as compensation. You can give it as a gift, in that regard, but you cannot give it for compensation purposes. So yes, you can do that. Okay, another question that's related to Dhul Hijjah, and we'll end with this question here. The person who is not performing Hajj, meaning the person who is not in the state of Ihram, and the person who is also not intending to do Qurbani, can they cut their nails and trim the hair in the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, right? So can they do that? So the answer to this question, if a person is, of course, a non-Haji, they're not in the state of Ihram, and if they intend to do a Qurban or a Udhiyah, a sacrifice, for them it is mustahab. It is generally liked. It is a recommendation that they do not clip the nails and that they do not cut the hair during those days until the animal itself is cut and the animal is slaughtered. And this is a narration of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the hadith that says that when the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah commence and a person has a sacrificial animal, then which he intends to slaughter, then let him not cut his hair, nor pare his nails, nor clip the nails. Now, this is a mustahab ruling. It's not an amr, it's not a command that you must do this. Because, of course, if a person has not cut their hair, including in certain areas, or if not cut their nails in certain amount of days or whatnot, and if they're getting very long, in that case, it is actually necessary for them to do so, and they have to do it in that case. So this is a recommendation the ulama say that, the person who then makes the slaughtering, then they get even more reward for the more hairs that they have and whatnot as well. So this is what's mentioned with regards to that. So it's not even in the category of a sunnah, but rather it's a mustahab, which is even a lower category. It's a recommendation. So you do get reward for it, but it's not something which is mandatory and necessary as some people think. So we'll end with that today. These are a few questions that are related to that. Any other questions that anyone has related to these issues when it comes to Qurbani, when it comes to Udhiyah, when it comes to the days of Dhul Hijjah, whatever it may be, send me an email, inshallah, mufti@islamstl.org. Inshallah, we'll try to answer as many as we can next week. And we'll try to stick to this particular topic. Wa jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.